It's not just Lauren who doesn't want this. Lauren. It's not just the leadership, as Lauren said, that doesn't want this bill to change. It's also President Trump and the administration. There is a concern that if this goes back to the Senate, they're starting completely over. They got it through the Senate. They want to get it through the House as is. They don't want any more question marks. They don't want to wait for any more votes. And so what we've seen here today is an incredibly quiet White House. We know that behind the scenes, they are having meetings. It's been a revolving door of not only just the holdouts, both conservative and the more moderate, but also people who support the bill, because they are hoping that this will bring some pressure to those colleagues if they're all in the room together talking it out. And as Lauren mentioned, a lot of this has been negotiations. How do we get this done as is? What do you need? Talking to these various lawmakers. And the administration is making promises. Now, the White House won't tell me what those promises are, but they're making promises to these lawmakers to try to help get them over the finish line. Again, this is critical for President Trump. Now, what we're hearing from White House officials who were incredibly bullish yesterday, saying we've been courting these House members for months, we're going to get this done. They've been a little bit more coy today, but they still believe they can get this done. And they're basing that off of the negotiations and off of the conversations that they're having. And actually, I was talking.
And this is to the point, right? I totally understand Elon Musk's frustration with this. I understand how we want cuts. A lot of the majority of MAGA wanted cuts, wanted to tamp down spending, wanted to take the Doge cuts that were accomplished and codify them and make it the law, make it so. Unfortunately, you have hundreds and hundreds of House members, senators, lobbyists. The swamp still needs to eat at the end of the day. And in order for Trump to get this across the finish line, I don't know how we move forward as a country. I don't know how we end this. It's never going to stop. It's never going to end. It doesn't seem like it's going to end. So while I'm with Elon when it comes to, and Thomas Massey, I'm with the people that really just want to tighten up the belts and get the house in order. However, you can't get things done. Nothing can get done unless you're going on a single item line and you just vote one thing at a time. But that's not what Congress has been doing. That's not what they're going to be doing. It's a lot more work. It's a lot less bang for their buck. I don't know how we fix this. Let's see what else CNN has to say, but it's a very tough situation. Trump's backed up against the corner. He wants the deal. He needs the deal because this is the only bill that Congress has passed. I mean, it's crazy how little work they've done. They haven't done anything in the past 6 months, and now they're going to ram this thing through. And it's chock full of a lot of stuff that we don't want. But that's like that's like how the system works now. It's kind of sad.
Talking to Lauren about this before we came on the show, one of the interesting things to watch for if this bill does get passed.
These lawmakers what they wanted, to give them what they wanted, and that's going to be something to watch moving forward. Yeah, we will be watching that. Kristen Holmes, thank you.
Out front now, Republican Congressman Tim Burchett. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us this evening. You voted yes on the House version of this bill. Where do you stand right now on this version the Senate sent over?
I'm firmly undecided. I've got a few more questions to answer. I'm concerned about the economic impact, of course, of this. I think the CBO.
By the way, if you don't know, Tim Burchett wearing a suit and a tie, it's a pretty big moment.
They do not take that into consideration, and that's something that I think is kind of greatly underutilized in their score because, oddly enough, if you release America's energy potential and remove a lot of the bureaucracy, you're going to see our economy grow. And, of course, the tax credits that are there for business manufacturing, 100% write-offs, things like that. And in Tennessee, if we don't pass it, we're going to see over a $2,000 to $3,000 tax increase on families making $70,000.
And this is where it sucks, right? They reach around they're basically like playing a game of chicken, right? Where they're saying, if you don't pass these tax cuts in this bill with all this other shit that's in here, then you guys are going to suffer, whatever the amount is. You're going to lose the tax credits. You're going to lose tax incentives. You're going to lose, there's a whole bunch of stuff that hasn't been codified that will be codified with this bill. However, they won't just pass it separately, right? Because they're trying to ram through all this other stuff that a lot of people don't want, that small niches of people want, right? That individuals want, that individual senators then what ends up happening is somebody says they're going to vote no. So then what happens? Oh, they talk to me. They do a cutout. Oh, let's shove a little bit of money, fund a little bit of money this way, right? We're going to take care of your constituents. We're going to take care of this power plant or what, like whatever. You know, they're going to write up a bill or put something in the bill that allocates a certain number of money going to this and that direction. They're cutting deals, and everyone else suffers for that, right? And it really sucks. And you know, again, I go back to the point. You know, when you look at Thomas Massey and Musk and all these people that are just trying to say that, hey, and Burchett was another one saying this is no good. Like, we're just spending too much money. You're talking about $1 trillion going to the Pentagon. You know, that's a $200 billion increase. That's insane. It's absolutely insane. But, you know, if you don't do this, then what's the alternative? They're not going to do anything. So, you know, it's sad, but this is where we are.
Or less. So, of course, I'm leaning in the affirmative, but I'm just waiting out to hear just exactly everything. We've been breaking it down piece by piece.
So you're taking issue with the CBO estimate here?
Yes, ma'am, I do have an issue with it. The office is very partisan. I mean, 85% of the people in their healthcare division identify as a Democrat or they've contributed.
Leading economist is that we ought to do away with these organizations because we use them when we like them, we don't use them when we don't like them, and then you've got a bunch of bureaucrats in here that are on the line.
I'm grade trained, and frankly, we've got independent agencies that can do that. We have people up here with accounting degrees that can do the math. So I feel like that is a waste of taxpayers' money.
So in January 2024, there was a Republican who trusted the CBO so much that they reintroduced a resolution to require the House clerk to read the CBO estimate of any bill. I believe that was you, sir. The third time you introduced that resolution, is that right?
That's correct, ma'am. Of course, and that proves.
But you
what
don't
I
like
said.
you don't like the
serves
CBO
us.
now.
Ma'am.
But you don't like the CBO now. You introduced that resolution over multiple years, but now you're dissing the CBO.
Did the bill pass?
Your resolution?
Did the bill pass? Yes, ma'am.
You introduced it, sir.
I know,
It's
ma'am, but did it
irrelevant.
pass? They never pass because nobody wants any verification. It proves my point. When it serves
the
us
point,
well,
you took a
when it
stance and you
serves
were
us well,
you're,
we're for it. But when it doesn't, we don't. So
you're clear about where you
I
are on the CBO. I just want to say, but just to get to where you said earlier that you were closer to voting yes after speaking with the president. I saw the vice president sent you put a nice tweet up that you responded to. What did the president say to you that made you feel maybe closer to voting yes?
He talked about the economic output that we would have that was not in the CBO scores, and along those lines, he talked about other things that I'm not going to.
And this is kind of the thing, right? This is what they're all trying to go back to. They're essentially trying to say that even though that we're blowing out the debt, right? That we're increasing we're raising the debt ceiling, we're going to be spending an extra, several $1 trillion over the course of the next 10 years. What the Trump team is saying is that our economic growth is going to outpace its current state, right? So the CBO is essentially saying this is what, if you take a snapshot of right now, of this moment in time, and forecast that out for the next 10 years, this is going to add how many $1 trillion to the deficit, to the debt, right? But what the Trump team is saying is that, well, we're just getting started, right? We got the tariffs going on, we have an economic boom happening. Inflation is low. Once the Fed comes in and lowers the rates, we're going to have a massive boom. And so essentially what the Trump team is saying is that the CBO rates are totally wrong because you have to factor in how much we're going to grow. So they're anticipating to grow themselves out of this debt that they're amassing right now, which is something that you can do, right? I don't know if you're going to do a 1-for-1. But I mean, even if you get to 50% there, it's pretty good. However, you just don't know, right? We don't know if that's going to happen. These are all estimates. These are all pie in the sky ideas that we're not really sure of one way or another if this is going to be the actual reality on the floor, right? That's more important. What's more important is what's actually going to happen. So it would be nice if we didn't have to grow ourselves out of it, right? If we could just stay financially prudent and just say, listen, let's just maintain our current level. Let's not go more. Let's stay where we are. And then if we grow, guess what? Then we're going to have more down the road. But to try to say we're going to spend more and then grow ourselves out of it, it's a very tough sell for a lot of people.
going to share, but because it was in privacy. But I think there's a lot of things that probably be revealed when this is passed, and I think America will embrace it further. I think, again, once you do some things like straighten up Medicaid and Medicare, and you dispute a lot of the lies that...
Guys, if you could subscribe to the channel, it really helps. Throw a like there, throw a share, comment if you will. I will respond to all the comments. Thank you.
They're in the media about people getting kicked off. I think America understands what we're up against in this. We're up against the, people want to call it the swamp up here, but it's really just a sewer. It's a man-made thing that just, it doesn't produce anything, and it fights us every step of the way. And so I think once you allow Americans to get out and work and actually force those to work and get them off the couch that some of them are on, that are in the illegals and folks that are gaming the system, I think you're going to see that this country will bust wide open.
Also, another great point, right? When it comes to the Medicaid, Medicare stuff, I always forget which is which. I don't think anyone really remembers. But essentially, there is a work standard, right? If you're an able-bodied person, now, again, we're not saying if you're a woman with kids and you can't, whatever. If you're an able-bodied person, right, that doesn't have children, then you should at least be willing to work. So I'm pretty sure that the clause in this is that you're willing to work. Doesn't necessarily say you have to work, but you have to be willing to work, which means if a job comes up and you turn it down for no reason, then you can't keep getting the benefits, right? You can't get these benefits if you're just a 25-year-old kid, no issues. You don't want to work at the McDonald's because that's beneath you. No, you can't you can't benefit from the system if you're not willing to give into the system, right? That's a very important piece of the legislation.
Economically, and I think that's going to be a great thing for this country.
Well, the CBO, which you put so much trust in for years and years, that you passed a resolution wanting estimates read before bills, is very clear about how
Yes,
many
ma'am.
people are going to be kicked off of health care until you were against the CBO.
No, ma'am. You listen. If you want to do the editorial, just go ahead, and you don't need me on here. But the
These
CBO,
are facts, sir. I don't have to editorialize.
I would like to see what the economic output of every bill. You as a taxpayer should want that too. And the CBO is the only organization we have. If I could allow a private accounting firm to do it, I would much rather that happen. But the reality is it would have to be the CBO. And what do you have against knowing how much each bill is spent? Why does the media oppose to that? Why do you all on the left always fight every chance at America knowing what's going on? The problem y'all have with this bill, ma'am, is that it gets government out of our way and lets Americans make some decisions. And maybe hardworking Americans would have a better choice and a better shot at life in this country without you all just telling us how bad things are going and trying to construct, and as you're doing with me, trying to dictate what I've said. And the reality is the CBO is a partisan organization. And the reality is America has a right to know how much we're spending on every piece of legislation. I cannot believe you as a member of the media would not want open records, and that is exactly what that bill would do.
Sir, we have reported on what is in this bill. We do that time and again.
Ma'am, you all are trying to scare, are you talking about the big, beautiful bill? You all just try to scare America by telling millions of people are going to be cut off this thing. You're talking about the people that are on it illegally, that are gaming the system, and that is... And
no, we're not. The CBO
is
very clear.
The bill does not do anything of what you've said, and all you've done is scare America, and you're not doing a service to this country, ma'am. And you all ought to start talking, you want to talk about transparency, and then there you are attacking me on a bill where I'm trying to make it transparent how much we're spending on each piece of legislation. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me,
You
ma'am.
wanted to have the CBO estimate, and you're now railing
because
against
that is
CBO
the only
estimates.
organization. That is the only organization at our disposal
Hey,
to do that.
Good enough for you, and we are reporting on it. Congressman Tim Burchett, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Damn, she was really freaking snooty there, right? I mean, I think obviously she had that question loaded. She had the gotcha loaded, ready to go. He didn't seem. Tim Burchett's usually ready to go, prepared for this kind of stuff. She felt like she had him and cornered. But to his point, like he's saying, if the CBO is the only organization that is doing it, and he wants it done, then regardless of whether or not it's partisan, he still wants it done. You just have to take what they're saying with a grain of salt. You just have to take what they're saying and understand it through the lens of a liberal slant, right? Of people that are predominantly voting for Democrat, that they're the ones that are doing the analysis. So this was pretty fiery. Guys, give me a like, give me a share, give me a subscribe. Go check out Tim Burchett on his X. He's actually a lot of fun. And also check me out on my X, 6283 Talk. Thanks a lot for coming on, guys. We'll see you again on the next video. Thanks a lot.